Ah, yes, mid-August. This is that lovely time of year when theme parks start announcing what they'll be doing for next season. And as is tradition here at Coaster Studios, we're going to be making our predictions for what Cedar Fair will be doing next year. Now, unlike Six Flags, Cedar Fair does not add a new ride at every single one of their parks every year. So some of these parks might not be getting anything. So that's what's kind of tricky about predictions, is you got to predict which parks are just getting a ride, period. And some of these parks are definitely easier to predict than others. So as usual, we're going to start with the largest Cedar Fair parks and work our way down to the bottom, which of course means starting with Cedar Point. Now, we know that Cedar Point will be doing a 2-year anniversary celebration in honor of their 150th year. That's right, this park has been around since 1870, so 150 huge celebration. I personally am not anticipating a new ride, but rather a bunch of little things put together. We've actually heard a few Cedar Fair executives talk about what Cedar Point will be doing for their 150th, and that sounds like the general idea of what will be happening. A bunch of nostalgic things brought back, maybe certain things given new paint to reflect how it used to be, maybe a few areas or things in the park we see their old names returned, and the biggest thing that I personally am expecting is a massive parade, something that goes on every day during the season. Think of Grand Carnival that we've seen at all of these different Cedar Fair parks. I think that Cedar Point is going to do that, but bigger, and they're going to have their own celebration. It's not going to be Grand Carnival. I bet it'll be Cedar Point specific. And because we imagine this is a 2-year celebration, I think that next year we'll be focusing more on the nostalgic things, and then maybe the second year we see them add some sort of large new attraction. But I personally am not expecting a big new ride next year. And one of the reasons why I think that Cedar Point won't be getting a big new ride next year is because Kings Island will be. If you're watching this video on its release date, then you know that Kings Island tomorrow is announcing their Giga Coaster. It's no secret that Kings Island will be adding a B&M Giga Coaster in Firehawk's location for next year. They've been doing tons of teasing. If you've seen those signs saying the end of the world as we know it, yeah, that's all teasing for their big new coaster, which will either be called Orion or Polaris. I personally am really hoping it's called Polaris. I think that is an awesome name. That's kind of a space futuristic type theme, and that'll work well in X-Base. I mean, you have Flight of Fear right there. I think it's going to be awesome. We already know the layout, so there's not a whole lot to predict here. Honestly, my biggest prediction is that they will name it Polaris. We will see what happens there. But yeah, that is going to be the big new attraction for Cedar Fair next year. And personally, I think that will be the only roller coaster coming to a Cedar Fair park next year. Cedar Fair is very specific and calculated with where and when they add their roller coasters. Last year we saw them add 2 coasters, the year before that was 4 coasters, and then for several years before that it was just 1 coaster. I think that next year they'll return and just do 1 coaster for all of their parks. Mainly because Polaris will be such a big investment. Next up we have Canada's Wonderland, and I think that they will be getting nothing. And that's not because Cedar Fair doesn't like them, it's because they just got Yukon Striker this past year. Typically, when a theme park gets a new roller coaster, the following season they don't really get much. It is possible that Canada's Wonderland could get something small. However, I'm not holding my breath. I wouldn't be surprised if they don't add anything noteworthy next year, especially since they're also working on opening a brand new hotel, and this year they're getting Winterfest. Next up is Knott's Berry Farm, and here's the thing. They're rumored to get a big old expansion of Ghost Town, but I'm thinking that that probably isn't happening next year because we haven't seen any demolition work or them beginning that process. So my hunch is that that will be 2021, which means next year is going to be a prep year for them. They're going to have to do something with all those haunt buildings that they use for Knott's Scary Farm, because all that expansion is going to be going back there. It'll take a lot of time to do that, especially since they want to do it right, and it'll most likely include a roller coaster. So I wouldn't be surprised if Knott's Berry Farm, in addition to Canada's Wonderland, doesn't really do anything next year. We will see though. Carowinds is one of the theme parks that did get a new roller coaster this past year with Copperhead Strike. But here's the thing, Cedar Fair loves Carowinds. They have been doing a lot to this park the past few years. I don't think that next year is going to be a stagnant year for them. I bet that they will be still adding something. Personally, I think the area that they are looking at is where their Rapids ride used to be. And used to is the keyword because it did not open at all this year, and it was taken off the map, which means it is either done and will be removed completely, and they will use that land for something else, or they're going to redo it. I personally am predicting that they will redo it because I think it wouldn't be the best move for Carowinds to just completely get rid of a water ride, when right now the only water rides that they have at Carowinds are actually in Carolina Harbor. They don't have any in the dry park. This Rapids ride was their only one, so with it being gone, that is why I don't think that they'll completely remove it and put something else there. I think that they're going to redo it, kind of like what Knott's Berry Farm did with Calico River Rapids. That doesn't necessarily mean that they will add animatronics to this, but I do think that they will make it a whole lot better than it actually was. King's Dominion announced the closure of one of their 2 wave pools, and they specifically said they're making way for something to take its place in 2020. This is the wave pool that was in the back of the park. It was rarely ever used anyways, and that whole back section of the water park kind of needs some love anyways. It was always the more neglected side of the water park. So I think that absolutely means we'll be getting a new slide complex back there. Another reason for this thought is because they recently removed Tornado, and that was a very popular slide here. I wouldn't be surprised if we see some sort of bowl slide, maybe some kind of complex similar to what California's Great America is adding next year. This is the one Cedar Fair park that has made their formal announcement. They'll be adding South Bay Shores Water Park. This was pretty highly predicted. They're redoing their water park, entirely retheming it, adding some new stuff, and their water park really needed it, so that'll be a good addition there. Next up is Worlds of Fun, and we know that they will also be going with a water park edition. They too have teased that Diamond Falls will be leaving and some sort of new slide will be taking its place. And with that plot of land, the type of water attraction that really stands out to me is a mat racer. Those are long and narrow. They're great crowd pleasers. I wouldn't be surprised if Worlds of Fun goes with the mat racer and King's Dominion goes with some bowl slides or something like that. But yeah, Worlds of Fun, King's Dominion, and California's Great America are going to be your 3 parks going water park for next year. Now you can include Dorney in that, but what Dorney is doing is a whole lot smaller than what those other parks are doing. They've made the semi-formal announcement that they'll be updating their kiddie splash area. The park hasn't really gone out and advertised that way, but we do know that that is what is coming to Dorney next year, which is kind of unfortunate in my opinion. I feel like they could do a lot better than that, especially since we just saw the removal of Stinger, which also happened to be the last roller coaster they added. So in my opinion, the dry park needs it more than the water park, but I mean, hey, I guess something is better than nothing. Next up is Valley Fair, and I too am predicting that they will get nothing. Cedar Fair rarely ever invests money in this park, and when they do get something, it's only every few years. So I personally am not anticipating anything here, but maybe one day they'll get something nice. And last and certainly least, we have Michigan's Adventure. And believe it or not, it looks like they're actually gonna get something. I mean, it's not what we all want them to get, but it's something. They're removing an old car ride, and so it looks like we might be getting something in its place. And the thing is, it might not even necessarily be a ride. I wouldn't be surprised if it's just an expanded plaza or area in its spot. They could use that plot of land, make it look nice, all Planet Snoopy-like. I personally think it would be nice if they added some kiddie rides to go along with it, but I'm not holding my breath. I do think it would be nice, though, if Michigan's Adventure actually got a pretty nice expansion to that kiddie section. But we'll see. It just depends if Cedar Fair wants to put some money in there. But those are my predictions for Cedar Fair next year. I don't think there'll be too many surprises. We already know a lot of what some of these parks will be doing, or at least have a hunch. But we'll see. It's very possible that one of these parks could come out and surprise us. But let me know down in the comments below what you think of these predictions. Of course, as I mentioned, if you're watching this when this video is released, Kings Island does announce their Giga Coaster tomorrow. So I'll be sure to have a full analysis of that once it comes out. But stay tuned for more predictions here at Coaster Studios. We'll see you next time.